Welcome to Cosmic Roadmap. I'm your host, Melissa Lambor, Reiki Astrogeo Guide and author. I support endless wanderers with where they are meant to be in the world. This podcast is for the digital nomad, the avid traveler, and aspiring globetrotter who is seeking their next destination on planet Earth. Join us as we venture around the world through people's stories and how astrogeography has connected them to their planetary energies and purpose. My special guest today is Melissa Chernow. She is a voice and visibility coach and the founder of Cardinal Publishing House. Her work empowers leaders to share from the heart with confidence and clarity, whether through spoken or written word. She creates impact-driven books that heal, connect, and inspire the authors and readers to live more authentically and joyfully. And we met through our mutual friend and mentor, Bridget Cisco, who is also a publisher, Exalted Publishing. And yeah, so welcome. And yeah, please tell me a little bit where you've gone since our Astrogeo session and where you are at this moment.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. I'm excited to be here. Congratulations on launching this. I know it has been a labor of love, so congratulating you.
Thank you.
And yeah, since our session, a lot of things have happened and travel based on our session, which we can get to in a little bit. But I am coming to you from New Jersey, which I think is where you are as well right now.
Yeah, so I know that you recently came back from Costa Rica, and that was one of the places that we looked at. You had your Pluto line there. I live on my Pluto line, and that is a roller coaster. And I remember you calling me during that trip, and I was just going back and forth with you because I felt for you. Having lived on the Pluto line my whole life, you're like, how in the world have you done that? I remember.
I don't know how you do
clearly.
it.
Yes,
and I
was gonna say I was in the car, sending you voice notes back and forth, and just go a little deeper into that because I know a lot of people want to know how it is to be on the Pluto line, especially if you haven't lived on it and you don't know what to expect. So
yeah. So I will say that months before I even went to Costa Rica, I just felt called to go there for no rhyme or reason other than feeling this intuitive pull. And so when it came time to have a session with you, I was like, oh, I would love to know more about Costa Rica. Is anything happening there with my lines? Because I just feel this really strong pull to travel there. And when you told me about the Pluto line, I was like, oh my goodness.
Right. You're like rebirth and transformation. Yeah, definitely. Right.
Yeah. Well, I could appreciate the depth of it. And perhaps, tumultuous is the word that's coming to mind. And that certainly matched my experience once I was there. But I can certainly appreciate death for rebirth. And I always think of butterflies and animals and leaves and things like that, just in nature. We see that in nature. And I think that's always such a beautiful reminder of the purpose of certain things. And so I knew this trip was going to have a purpose. Whether or not it was comfortable, this transformation, this death and rebirth was going to serve a purpose. And it did. And I'm so grateful for it. But I mean, I get on the plane and I'm hesitant because I'm like, what does this land really have for me? I know this is going to be a lot. And of course I get there and it's beautiful. The place that I find to stay is perfect. And then it all starts happening.
Little by little, yes.
And it was like one thing after the next thing. And it was so impactful because it was opportunity after opportunity to use my voice, to speak up for myself, to ask for help, to, reach out to you and other friends and peers and just receive love and support from other people. And it was also really humbling. Like, it was not comfortable. And so how are you with yourself? How do you be with yourself? How do you treat yourself? How do you speak to yourself in those times where it just does, it just doesn't feel good. You're not enjoying yourself. And then people are like, oh, you're in Costa Rica. Aren't you having the greatest time? Like,
It's
tell me, like, are you
paradise.
surfing? Yeah. I'm like, far from it, but a girl can dream, you know?
Exactly. And do you feel like that got you to where you are now? Because you've been doing coaching for the last like year or so, right? And now
Yeah.
you're in a new phase of starting this publishing company.
Yeah.
Was that a
I
little bit of
mean,
it?
in so many ways, with the power of the voice and using our voice. And, it doesn't matter if it makes sense to anybody else, but it's important for each of us to speak from the heart, to share our desires and needs. And that trip was like a master class in using my voice. And, despite the discomfort and with the discomfort. And then with the publishing company, I mean, I was doing a lot of writing while I was there. I knew, I think it was about 6 months before even going to Costa Rica, I knew I was going to open a publishing company, but I was just waiting for things to kind of, you know, find their
Fall into
place a little
place.
bit. Yeah, exactly. And so I was doing a lot of writing, and it just became more and more clear that this was all going to happen. And I also think, part of the mission and the purpose of the publishing company, when we share our stories, like, it's not all rainbows and daisies. And I think we see so much of ourselves in other people and so much of our capabilities in other people when we read their stories. And so it's to offer that hope. It's to say, you know what, I went to Costa Rica. I I did not have a great time. These are the things that happened, and I learned to hold myself. I learned to speak to myself more kindly. I practiced that. It's all these things that we know we can do, but when push comes to shove, like, really, how are you being? And so, yeah, it did certainly, play a role in that.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And the fact that you sought out the Pluto line as that transformative energy. And that's when I do guide my clients to that energy, I'm always like, it is a heavy energy. Just watch out. But you may
Yeah.
need it. Like if you're being called to that place, you may need it. And for you, it was almost, the that catalyst to get you to where
Hmm.
you are now. So that really is so beautiful. And yeah, so tell me a little bit about all the other places that you kind of, if you look at your astro maps and you go back to Italy and Croatia, some of the places that we discussed in our session, like how did those also affect your purpose today?
Yeah, well, I think it's so interesting. Before I really even knew what any of this was, certainly open to it, wanted to know more about it, um, and knew I had such a transformational experience when I studied abroad in Italy when I was in college. I was also curious about, what lines go through Italy. And I also, when I was there, spent a or a weekend in Croatia, had a transformational experience. And it was the relationships I developed with people in these places that really impacted my life and have impacted my life. And so when, I saw there were a couple crosses there and a few lines that, or a few, I should say, a few lines that were crossing and a couple more, in Italy, um, I was so curious as to what they were. And you started talking about, I don't know specifically the lines, I don't remember, but,
Yeah, I think it was
talking about,
Jupiter for abundance and then the moon node for your purpose. Yeah,
yes,
those are a
and
few of
healing
them.
was
Yep.
another.
And healing, the Chiron
Healing.
line. Yep.
Yeah. And so I think about the relationships that I developed with people in Italy and Croatia, literally on these lines. Like, the only place I went to in Croatia was Split, and where those lines cross is Split. And I'm like, what? Like, come on, what's really going on here?
Yeah.
And these people brought such richness to my life, such love, true abundance to my life, healed parts of my heart that I didn't even know needed healing, opened parts of my heart that I had never accessed before. Right. And when I think about one's purpose, I really do think like we have multiple purposes, I believe, but to love, to relate
Mm-hmm.
to one another, such simple, simple things. And that's what these places did for me. And I just think it's so cool how intuitively we're guided to these places. I had never, I don't know if you experienced this or whatnot. Um, but I remember growing up, everybody would talk about how much they loved Italy or how much they wanted to go to Italy. And I just didn't get it. I was like, okay, that's cool. Like, have fun. I hope you have a great time.
Yeah.
It's never really called to me um, until it did. And once it did call to me, I was like, oh, that's where I'm going. Okay. And the same thing happened with Costa Rica. You hear amazing things about Costa Rica, but it
Right.
didn't call to me, didn't draw me in until the moment it did. And so I think it's so powerful that these places, whether it's intuitively, subconsciously, we know what we need, we're drawn to these places when we are, and we get to honor that and have these experiences.
Yeah, I felt that recently with Egypt because so many people, want to go to the pyramids.
Yes.
But I didn't go there for the pyramids. I went there for the dolphins. And I had people
Mm,
saying, like, why don't you just go to Florida and like swim with the dolphins? I'm like, no, but I'm trying to connect with my Pluto line, my Neptune
mm,
line, my Chiron line. So it was a very introspective trip. And I haven't released a lot of it because I'm still processing a lot of what was going on. And I was going there to heal my throat chakra, really, because I felt like I was robbed of my voice this whole
mm-hmm.
past year. So I completely understand when, yeah, so many people are like, oh my God, like I've wanted to go there my whole life. And it was like, actually, like it just happened within a span of a month where I'm like, I think I'm going there. I don't know
Yeah.
why, but the
Yeah.
clues are lining up, and yeah, I just have to go there. So I completely understand. And another one was Peru and Bolivia. It was Peru, and then it expanded into Bolivia. So it was a 3 week trip of going around, just backpacking by myself, my
That's
very first
incredible.
backpacking trip. And after that trip, and when I wrote my first chapter for Legacy Speaks, that's when I realized I actually was connecting with the sacral chakra of the world.
Mm, mm-hmm.
And I was meant to really heal my creative center by going to that particular place, Lake Titicaca, between
Mm-hmm.
Peru and Bolivia. So once again, not a place that I was planning to go to, but it was right after my partner had come back from Japan. It's like, you need to travel on your own. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to Peru. Why? I don't know. So yeah. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
totally get it.
that's another thing. So many people ask, like, why are you going to Costa Rica? What's the purpose of your trip? And I think sometimes, I don't think we need to know, right?
No.
We like to know the reason behind things, but we don't need to
Sometimes
know.
you discover it when you get there, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's the whole point, and such a huge component to individual travel is
Mm.
the unfolding and the unveiling in the moment.
Yeah, and I commend you for doing that because I know you seem like a planner, like someone that kind of wants to know what's so the fact that you surrendered to that experience. But did you, I don't if you went into it, but you came back early.
I
You ended
did.
early. And what
I
was, yeah,
did.
a rationale and the fact that you didn't stick it through and you were just like, no, I'm going back. Like
I'm coming
that's
home.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this is one of the things that I am still coming to terms with mentally, but my body is so good with it, like so fine. So my plan was, as you know, to be there for 5 to 6 weeks and kind of take it from there and see where the wind blew me. And I came back 9 days later. um, but so it was, I kind of alluded to earlier, it was, on night one, I was met with an opportunity to take care of myself in a really uncomfortable way. About 36 hours after that, it was another opportunity to do that. And this one, brought me to my knees even more than the first time around. And I was like, okay, deep breath. Like, you kind of knew this. Like, maybe this is what the Pluto line is all about. I think you're starting to experience this, maybe in one way or another. Just keep trying, keep asking for help, keep taking care of yourself in the way you need and know, and just keep going. And then I woke up Wednesday morning, and it was, round 3, brought to my knees, even harder than the last time. And I reached a place where my body and my nervous system were they were done. And it was hard to accept that, because I wanted to stay. I wanted to experience the joys of the rebirth in Costa Rica just as much as I was experiencing the death and the shedding. And so just from, the ego perspective, it was like, oh, I want to get to this place. I want to have this experience. I want the full 360 here. And it wasn't happening. And I knew if there was one more thing, I could just feel myself like snapping.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to do that to my body. I wasn't going to do that to my inner children. And I just decided, you know what? It's okay to go home. Like, it's okay. And so I came home. I booked that flight, got that COVID test, and
Yeah.
I came home.
Do you ever see yourself going back?
I do not. I mean, not anytime soon, at least. I do think, and I have kind of daydreamed about going back in the future with people, right? Like, not going back to my Pluto line by myself in that capacity. So never say never, of course, but I'm not booking a flight tomorrow.
You're not going to a retreat next week.
No, I'll look at my Venus line for that. All right.
Which we were, like I think it was serendipitous that my past guest was looking at Hawaii, and when I opened up your chart, it was right on Hawaii, and actually your love line, your Venus line, is through there. So that may be another place to check out in the future.
And that's funny, because I, again, never drawn to Hawaii, but recently it has been feeling like the next best thing. So who knows, by the time this episode comes out, I could be basically in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
Yep. So do you have any other places in mind in the future now that you've looked at your astro maps, and do you have any plans to travel abroad like anytime soon? I know it's a little difficult to travel abroad at this moment, but but if you do have plans.
Abroad, I mean, I think a piece of my heart will always be in Italy, and I would love to go back. But speaking of Hawaii, I really have been drawn to travel there soon. I think that's coming. I know that's not international, but that's one of the places that is calling me. And then, interestingly enough, Montana is calling me. And again, I know that's within the States, but it is not a place I would pick out on a map and say, oh, I want to go there, especially not in the middle of winter, because, my body doesn't love the cold.
Was that one of the places we looked at when we did our...
It's not one of the places that we looked at, but I do believe there is a line going through Montana at some, I'm not sure which line it is or where exactly it goes. So who knows where my travels will take me. But again, I'm always open to that next place that's calling my name, because I think there's so much medicine and magic to be had in those places, as we've both experienced, and I'm sure listeners have as well.
Exactly. And what do you see, or what do you envision for your business now? Like, are you still coaching? Like, do you see like doing that and the publishing at the same time? Like, where do you see your business going?
Yeah. So the overall mission of it all is to empower more people to speak from their heart and live authentically in a way where, their inner voice, their inner wisdom, their heart matches their spoken word. And so that to me is like true alignment, because you're not biting your tongue. You have nothing to hide. You're just being exactly who you are. And so whether or not that's, coaching, specifically like voice and visibility coaching. So anything energetic that's going on that's, keeping you from speaking your truth, or you always get nervous when, or you really think this is going to happen, or you've had this, traumatizing experience that's kept you from doing X, Y, and Z, to, what, I'm ready to share my story, or a story of mine, and I'm ready to experience this new type of visibility that maybe I haven't experienced before, by becoming a best-selling author on an international scale. And like, what does that do to my nervous system? It's all this healing and growing and learning, however you choose.
Yeah, and having been through 2 books now, with Lineage Speaks and this Legacy Speaks. With
Mm-hmm.
Legacy Speaks, it was, oof, it was interesting, because you almost feel like you're naked, right? Like you're so
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable, and it's the first time that maybe the public is reading your story, right? Like these words, and my mother and my family reading my story. So yeah, I it's an amazing journey, healing journey for many of
Mm-hmm.
the co-authors that are going to be signing up with you. So yeah, it's going to be an amazing experience, because I know that you work with spoken word, but this as written word it's all this like symbiotic relationship. So
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah, and I
And
think too, there's an extra healing element once you've written your chapter,
oh
to
yes,
actually read it out loud, to hear yourself speak your story. That's been some of the most profound healing I've experienced, just in going through my own things. Um, so if somebody's listening to this, and I mean, honor your intuition and what you're being called to, but there was something that I was working through that I just kept feeling like it always came up. It felt just like a roadblock that just kept
mm-hmm.
presenting itself. And I got the intuitive hit to just start recording myself, like take a video of myself speaking out what had happened. It was the most cathartic and healing thing I had done for myself related to that. So I think the spoken word can be so healing and powerful, pairing it with the written word too.
Definitely. And yeah, as a longtime journaler, like
Mm-hmm.
journaling is something that helps me get through my emotions and whatever's going through, right? With just stream of consciousness. So
Yeah.
yeah, so what are your offerings like moving into February, the end of January? Like how can people work with you?
Yeah, so we'll be wrapping up the enrollment and applications for the multi-author book called Changemakers, Paving a New Pathway on Purpose. And so if you're looking to, share your story and be in a network of like-minded, like-hearted leaders and entrepreneurs who all have a story to share about creating some change, impacting some intentional, sustainable shift in your life, whether that's in your personal life or your professional life. You can find me on Instagram at Melissa Melrose with an underscore at the end of that. The application is in my bio. And then going from there, I am working behind the scenes on a group program. I do well, I guess I could say the name of it. You'll all be hearing it soon enough. So it's called Heart Spoken, and it really is about speaking from the heart, the healing that gets to happen from that place, but also the confidence and clarity you get to gain through honoring what your heart wants to speak and what your truth really is. So I'm so excited for that. And I also offer one-on-one coaching, specifically called Sixth Sense. And so that's honoring the intuition and speaking from that place, and how to gain confidence in trusting yourself, really.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Melissa, for being on
Oh, of
today.
course.
And it's been
No,
amazing to
thank
see
you.
your evolution ever since, like, we've been in multiple mentorship programs in the past. So
Yeah,
yeah, I just love seeing, you know, us just growing side by side. So
it's
um,
so fun.
yes. All right. So thank you. And I leave you with this quote: lineage goes beyond your ancestors. You are meant to connect to the cosmos so you may finally find your cosmic family. So until next time, thank you. Thank you for listening to Cosmic Roadmap. If you're curious about astrogeography and where you're meant to be on the planet, go to cosmicroadmap.com to download your free passport to purpose. You can also book a session with me where we can explore your own cosmic roadmap and chart your next destination in business, love, and life.